There is a year in human history that the world remembers as the year without a summer. During this year, people all over the world were shocked and terrified, asking a simple question: where did the summer go? Farmers watched in despair as their healthy crops froze and died overnight. Water in rivers, springs, and lakes froze into solid ice during the hottest months of the year. Even in the middle of the day, a strange, deep darkness covered the sky. Terrified, people looked up, wondering why the temperature was dropping so fast. However, the real reason behind these scary clouds was not in the sky. The true cause of this global destruction was happening thousands of miles away on Earth. A force that completely ruined the world's natural system. Welcome back to another video by S&10, the sleeping giant, Mount Tambora. In Indonesia, there is a beautiful green island named Sumbawa. On this island stood a quiet mountain known as Mount Tambora. It was so high, about 4,300 meters tall, that clouds often covered its top half. At that time, it was the highest peak in the entire region. For centuries, this mountain was completely silent, like a sleeping giant. On the nearby islands, people lived peaceful lives. They fished in the ocean and enjoyed their simple days, but they had no idea that a terrifying nightmare was brewing inside this quiet mountain. A boiling ocean of magma was slowly building up pressure, enough to shake the entire Pacific Ocean. The explosion of April 10th, 1815. Then came April 10th, 1815, a historic and horrific day when Mount Tambora's anger finally erupted. This was no ordinary volcanic eruption. Experts believe it was the most powerful and violent eruption in 10,000 years of human history. The sound of the explosion was so deafening that it was heard thousands of miles away. People living 2,600 kilometers away in Sumbawa heard its roar. In distant countries, people thought a massive war had broken out nearby. British Army officers even ordered their cannons to be prepared, thinking enemy pirates were attacking them. During the daytime, the sky turned pitch black. Then hot glowing rocks, fire, and ash began raining down from above. Inside the mountain, a deadly river of superheated gas and rock, known as a pyroclastic flow, rushed down at hundreds of kilometers per hour. With temperatures over 1,000 degrees Celsius, this storm of fire wiped out the entire Tambora kingdom and nearby villages in seconds. No one had time to run, think, or save their lives. The massive explosion and the collapse of the mountain also triggered giant tsunami waves in the ocean, drowning nearby coastal regions. Days later, when the smoke cleared, people were shocked. The mountain peak that once touched the sky was completely gone. In its place was a massive hole, a crater 6 kilometers wide and 1 kilometer deep. The real killer, poisonous gases. When we think of volcanoes, we usually think that flowing lava causes the most damage. But in the case of Mount Tambora, lava was not the main killer. The lava stayed near the mountain. The real destruction was caused by the gases that shot high into the sky. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, this powerful blast pushed huge amounts of smoke, fine ash, and millions of tons of sulfur dioxide gas straight into the stratosphere, the upper layer of Earth's atmosphere. The stratosphere sits about 50 kilometers above the Earth, where there is very little air movement. Because of this, anything that reaches this layer stays there for a long time. These tiny particles spread across the entire sky, covering the whole northern hemisphere. They formed an invisible blanket made of sulfate aerosols. These microscopic particles acted like tiny mirrors. When sunlight reached the Earth, this invisible layer bounced the sun's heat back into space. Without sunlight and heat, the Earth began to cool down rapidly. It was a silent, invisible enemy that forced humanity to freeze in the cold. The year 1816. Life without summer. The terrifying results of this atmospheric blanket appeared the very next year, in 1816. Instead of warm sunshine in June, July, and August, everything turned upside down. In parts of New England, Canada, and America, heavy snow fell in the middle of July. Temperatures dropped below freezing, 0 degrees Celsius, during months meant for growing crops. People burned wood in their fireplaces during summer just to stay warm. Birds froze and fell dead from the sky due to the extreme cold and lack of food. In Europe, thick fog, frost, and endless cold covered the land. Diseases spread rapidly, and thousands died from hunger and freezing temperatures. Economic collapse and chaos. When crops could not grow, food became extremely rare. Following the basic rule of economics, when supply drops and demand rises, prices skyrocket. The cost of basic foods like rice and wheat went beyond the reach of normal people.
This food shortage led to widespread riots and looting. In cities and villages across Europe and America, desperate people broke into food warehouses and fought each other just to survive. What made this tragedy even worse was that people had no idea why it was happening. In 1816, there were no cell phones, internet, televisions, or telegraphs. People could see snow falling in July, but they didn't know that a volcano thousands of miles away in Indonesia was the cause. Because of this lack of information, wild rumors spread. Some thought the end of the world had arrived. Others believed the sun had permanently lost its power. Many believed it was a divine punishment for their sins. How did the crisis end? You might wonder how a hot volcano cools down the earth. As explained, the sulfur aerosols acted like tiny mirrors in the stratosphere, turning on a global air conditioner with no remote control to turn it off. So, how did it stop? Volcanic ash and sulfur particles cannot stay in the atmosphere forever. Over time, gravity pulled them back down to Earth. By 1817, the weather slowly began to improve. However, full recovery took time. By 1818 and 1819, the sun began to shine brightly again, and warm summer weather returned. Crops grew back, and fields turned green once more. Scientists estimate that by 1820, 5 full years after the eruption, Earth's temperature and climate finally returned to normal. Could it happen today? More than 200 years have passed since this event, but are we safe today? If an eruption like Mount Tambora happened now, the destruction could be even worse. Aviation crisis. Volcanic ash ruins jet engines. We saw this when a British Airways flight accidentally flew into an ash cloud near Jakarta, causing all 4 engines to fail. A global shutdown of air travel would leave millions stranded and disrupt global trade. Economic collapse. Stock markets would crash out of panic, leading to massive unemployment. Panic and misinformation. While we have instant communication today, social media could spread fake news and panic faster than ever before. Food supplies would run short, driving prices out of control. Despite all our advanced technology, humans remain just as helpless against the overwhelming power of nature as the people of 1816. Final thoughts. Mount Tambora is not dead. It is still an active volcano. According to official data from the Global Volcanism Program, its last recorded activity was in 1967, and increased seismic activity was detected under the mountain as recently as March 2026. This mountain is simply resting, slowly gathering power deep beneath the Earth's surface. No one knows when the pressure inside will cross the limit again. If it erupts at that scale again, we or future generations might face another, and perhaps worse, year without a summer. Because no matter how great human plans are,